Hey folks, welcome to the summer series. We're here to talk about art in game design. And I've got 4 panelists here, if you include me. I don't normally include me, but I'm going to this time. And we're going to hopefully get some perspectives on not just game design and what it's like to work with artists from the game designer perspective, but we also have Puffy here, who's going to talk to us about what it's like to work with game designers as an artist. And we'll start with some introductions. Chrys, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, hi, my name's Chrys Sellers, and I publish as Hectic Electron Games. I made a game of queer sword and sorcery called Defy the Gods, and a game of chaos and trash called Raccoon Sky Pirates. I'm happy to be here.
Will?
Hey, I'm Will Munn. I run Adept Icarus, and we make games like Arium, the world-building RPG, and solo games like Rue from Ruin, which is a solo werewolf game, and then we also publish games by other designers such as Cyan Starlight by Alan Barr.
Very cool. And Puffy, tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Isabela, but also known as Puffy or the Inky Warlock. I am a Brazilian illustrator who makes fantasy art, mostly for TTRPG stuff, and also VTuber models.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And I am Jason. I'm with Accidental Cyclops Games. We've made a couple of titles, neo-noir one called The Real Thing RPG, based on the music of Faith No More, and another one called Surviving Strange Hollow. That's a 5e setting, for lack of a better word. All right, let's kick it off. I think the best place to start is probably from the game design perspective. How do we go about finding artists? How do we find great people like Isabela to work with and make sure that they can throw our vision out there to the world in a way that works for us?
I have reached out to people on social media, on ArtStation and DeviantArt, and if they don't reply, I just say, okay, their commissions must not be open. But I try to look for people who, first I try to know what I want, and then I try to look for people who reflect the look I'm going for and the themes I'm going for, which isn't directly how to find artists, but it helps if you're cold emailing somebody to say why you think they're good for the project.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool point. It's not just about necessarily how to find the artist and where they're at, but what information do you give them to kick off the conversation, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Will, do you have any strategies?
I have done a few things. The first thing that I did was try really, really, really hard to find the perfect artist to do the cover for the Arium series back in the day, and reached out to some people. I'm like, oh, you would be perfect. You would be so great. Please come work on the thing. And then, ultimately people didn't want to work on the thing, or they didn't sometimes respond. And so eventually I did find someone who I really loved that did the covers that we have that, are just fantastic. But that was sort of through a very trial and error sort of process, because they'd never done any kind of commissioning for art before. Later on, what I found was getting recommendations from people who I know who had worked with artists is very helpful, but also trying an open call on social media can be a good way to think about it too. But like you both said, I think you have to know what you want. You have to be clear about what you're hoping for people to do. And because we were doing tarot cards for a tarot card deck for an upcoming game, for one call, it was really easy just to say, hey, would you be interested in illustrating a tarot card? And a lot of people were really interested in that. And so that was really fun. Yeah.
I think that's a good segue into Isabela talking about how you found each other. That sounds weird. I mean,
that was exactly how we found each other. I saw him on TikTok. I was like, hey, wait a second.
Puffy, cool. How have people found you? Is it on TikTok mostly, or?
So people mostly find me by YouTube, actually. Like whenever someone says like, "Hey, I saw something from you," it's either Twitter or Instagram, and also YouTube. Even though I don't post a lot there, but yeah, it's like the random places.
Yeah.
Wow.
I say for my part, I'm a little unique in that for our biggest project, Surviving Strange Hollow, we actually found the art first. A very talented artist in the UK named Emily Hare had an entire catalog that was based around this setting that she had devised herself. And my daughter, who's also an artist, she's only 16, so she's not a professional artist, but she's an artist of sorts. And she fell in love with her work, and I said, this would be a really cool setting for a game. And we reached out to Emily and said, can we partner with you? And she said yes. So it was a sort of backward way of doing things and saying, we really like your book of work, can we work together and maybe do some more work alongside what you've already got?
Yeah,
That's so cool.
that is good. Or someone that you like. I have a couple people that I knew pretty well, and like at first I was a little nervous to ask them to work on one of our projects, but when I did, they were really friendly and generally were interested in working on stuff, which was super cool. That's for commissions though, but not every piece of art that we use in our games are commissioned. So there's also other things too. Maybe that's later in our panel. I don't remember.
Let's make this organic. Just start jazzing. Go.
Yeah.
What do you got?
What does that mean?
Yeah, great question. Well, it doesn't mean have AI generate it for you. Don't do that. But there are a lot of people out there who make stock art and publish it in a variety of ways, such as on larger platforms or things, or some of them do it in a much more personal manner where they have like a subscription, or they sell particular packs of different types of stock art, like on Drive-Thru RPG or on itch.io, or they have a Patreon that you can subscribe to and just support them over time as they're continuing to make art, and then get access to some of that art. And some people make a lot of different things and in a lot of varieties. And so you can just sort of pick through it. And when you see something that speaks to you, you can be like, oh yes, I do want to use that for my thing. Or that's been something that's been pretty effective for some of our like interior art sometimes for some of the books, or for like if you're making oh gosh, like why can't I remember the name of this graphic design technique where you sort of mash things together?
Collage?
Collage?
Yeah, sort of like that.
Decoupage?
Photo bashing?
There you go. That's it.
Photo
Yeah,
bash.
like kit bash, photo bash.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I've never really, when we talked last time, Will, you had brought up the idea that there are these folks, the artists out there that are willing to give away these packs of art. And I did not know that was even a thing. I think that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often they have a theme that they sort of go to, and they'll follow that theme. So if you are really into sci-fi art, you might like have a hard time finding, things that are specific to that. Or, I mean, there's a ton of people out there that make different genre style arts, but not a lot of people that cross a lot of different genres, I feel like.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that's a next good point. Isabela, when you're working on things, or when you're out there in the world looking for projects to work on, do you tend to focus on a style or a venue or a theme, or will you do all kinds of different art?
So a little bit of both, because at the same time, I know as like a professional, as someone who works with art, I know what I do the best, like what I want to focus, what I like to focus. But I also like to try random different things to also find out, like, do I like this thing? Do I don't like this thing? So I tend to do a lot of like cozy fantasy art, like very storybook like, very warm and pretty and cute. But also I do like to take a project that's a little bit more horror, a little bit more, I don't know, sci-fi. So there's a little bit of both.
Okay, that's cool. Will, you said something earlier as well that made me start thinking about how dangerous it is. You mentioned AI art and how dangerous it's gotten to just do a Google search for art, because it's really hard to suss out who the quote real artists are, as opposed to the folks that are just mass generating AI stuff.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I think, platforms like Shutterstock and Envato and some of these other ones that are very, very open and very accepting of AI art and make it difficult, even when they have flags on their sites that say, hey, don't include AI art or whatever. It doesn't catch everything. It definitely doesn't, because a lot of people just don't mark it. It's all self-reporting. And so they're like, well, I made this art with, my words, which just blows my mind.
That's art too, right? That's like me calling myself an artist because I design games. I'm not an artist.
Right. Well, a different kind of artist, but yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Not the kind we're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think tabletop games are really like I think tabletop games are because the essential appeal is so retro that like we're going to be a holdout against AI art for a long time.
Yeah.
Whatever viewer, whatever your individual stance is on AI, I just think that this market is going to be very much valuing actual human work and creativity.
Yeah. But I also think the other side of that, and this is really getting off topic, but I think that's okay. There was already just a mass devaluation of artistic practices, right? Like I think artistic professionals have seen income potential and job opportunities just go down over the last decade, even maybe more than that. And the flood of the marketplace with AI or AI art or AI modified art or AI modified photos is just making it even more commodified in ways that I find personally disgusting. I don't know that that's a great thing for me to be saying, but I find it really gross.
It's terrible. It's sad because the TTRPG space is like generally one of the few spaces that I see a genuine big backlash against those things. And it's also one of the reasons I can still work as an artist, because both the TTRPG community and the VTubing community are very against AI. So like I can still find clients, but it's always smaller clients. It's not usually companies, big companies, which is a bit harder, but it's also really nice because I get to work with actual people instead of like machines or big structures.
Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts on finding artists? What other methods are you all using, or do we want to move on to the next thoughts?
Oh, I have to recommend something to you guys, because there is a platform that I use to find clients and clients use to find me that not a lot of people outside VTubing know, and it's a great platform. It's VGen, like VGen. And it's a small independent team working on the platform. It's a platform for clients and artists to find each other. It is more focused on like streaming and VTubing, but you can find like anything there, including assets. And it's right now it's an invite-only platform. You can get invites like by them. It's pretty easy to get an invite, but they verified every single artist that gets there, so there's generally like no AI. So really great platform that I really like, and I recommend to everyone because I love using it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It looks like it's vgen.co.
Yes.
And they also make one for, it looks like, for sound related stuff, music. So VSona.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
They have that's actually for characters. It's like
interesting. Okay.
OCs. Yes. there's literally everything there. It's a really good platform.
That was my Latin failing me. I apologize. So that's for characters, not sound.
It's all right.
Oh, the Witch Cat Atelier art. Oh no. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. This is fun.
Oh, that's very cool.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing that. That's going to be huge for folks watching this video, particularly the people that are new to IGDN or interested in IGDN, that are independent game developers that are out there looking at sometimes
getting ready to make the first game.
Yeah, exactly. The first game. How do I do any of this? Yeah. Cool.
And like most freelance platforms are very bad for artists. But I generally see a huge effort on Pigeon's team part on like making this good for artists as well. So
That's great.
Yeah, it's great.
That's cool. I don't know. What do you guys think about jumping into like a topic that's money related? I know it's gauche to talk about money, but do we want to talk about licensing versus contracting and those sorts of things?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right. So I'm gonna throw this to Isabela first. How do you tend to price yourself? Do you do it by the piece or the project, or how do you like to be approached when it comes to talking about budgets and things like that?
It depends a bit on what the client needs, because I do both smaller and big projects. For smaller things like just a portrait, a character, or something like simpler, I tend to have like a table of prices, but I can always adjust depending on like what the person needs. But also if it's a proper project, like for a book or a game or something like that, then it's always agreed on. It's not exactly a price per hour, but I always try to estimate how many hours will I need, and then I base my ideal price on that.
Okay.
I know there was one artist that I contracted with who charged more for if it was going to be on the cover versus interior, and also charged. So there was promo art that was originally not going to be in the book, and there was an arrangement to charge more if it did end up going in the book. So usage,
Yes.
mattered.
Yeah, the first time I encountered that was a couple of years ago. We worked with an art director and illustrator named James Masingo, who's been in the business in video games as well as tabletop games for 20 years at this point. And he was talking to me about how he does some of his pricing, and it's kind of like exposure, like how front and center is this piece of art going to be? Because if it's going to be a main featured piece like a cover, then I'm going to charge more for it because it's going to be bringing you a lot of attention. And those weren't his words, but that's kind of the vibe that I got from the conversation we were having.
What is the value that you are providing?
Yeah.
I've only ever written or signed other people's contracts. So what do you all mean by a license?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Will.
it is. I think I can take a shot at that because I've done some of both, right? So usually what I've seen, and I ran into this because I had never done any licensing, for the record, right? I started out by, it was all commission, work for hire, right, type of stuff. So I pay you, you give me art, right? And the way that I usually work art contracts, I used to do it like piece by piece, but now that's very painful. And so instead, I do like a service agreement type of contract. So, or a primary service agreement type of contract where everyone, I sign one with every artist that I work with. And I say, hey, look, like here are all the things that we have to agree about all the time, right? There's no generative AI use. There's no, this, no that. These are the rights that you have that you retain from any art that we do together. And these are the rights that Adept Icarus retains, right? And then I say, then we will negotiate in writing prices for pieces depending on the complexity and whatnot of the piece, or how much of it there is, or where it's going to be used and things like that. And so then we just negotiate those things in writing after the fact. But the contract, I ended up having to make a second one because that was for like work for hire. And then I had one artist and then since then have had a couple others who really wanted to retain sort of full ownership rights of their art in a way that that I feel is fair and brought the cost down a little bit as well because of how it was done, right? So they retained the rights to the art, but I might have the right to say I can use this art maybe in perpetuity or maybe for a set amount of time for these purposes, and they can't resell the art for use in those types of purposes for the same span of time, the same right, whatever that may be. And I think negotiating what that all looks like can vary from artist to artist. Some artists absolutely, what I found anyway, don't like they don't want to deal with licensing. They just want to do the art for hire, and then they want to be able to. I usually provide rights to, like, you know, sell your own prints if you want to, use it in portfolios, do, you know, other types of things with it, make t-shirts, whatever, right? And I'm using it for games and for, you know, like fiction and things like that, and so I will have the rights to that forever, basically, is usually what I try to aim for. But
okay, yeah, because right, the contract. So I went through a lot of generations of the contracts that I was using when I was hiring artists for Defy the Gods, and I sort of shifted over time from this is something that I own the rights to, but you still have what they call moral rights, the right to say that it's yours, the right for the right to have me say it's yours, and the, you know, to be credited fairly wherever it's shown, and to have it be to not have it be distorted significantly from how you gave it to me, by color or composition. And then over time, after just seeing other you know, artist contracts that they liked to use and working with enough artists, I just started with all of them saying, you own the rights to it, you grant me I think it was, I was saying exclusive, but non what's the word, non-rescindable right to use it forever in whatever format whatever form factor I want to. But that was always up for debate too. You were up for negotiation. I was open to that. But that just seemed more like the US is really weird with copyright law in that it's much more slanted over toward the client than the artist than anywhere else that I know of, in that work for hire does not let artists retain those moral rights. Work for hire is just like, they could say you never existed, you know, as an artist. So like working with European artists and artists from South America and elsewhere, you know, like that it became, that's why I started moving more in that direction. So maybe, Will, that's what you would call a license rather than a contract. Like it wasn't contract labor, contract work, you know. But Puffy, what do you like to work with? What kind of contract or agreement do you like to make, ideally?
When I'm working with smaller clients, I always have like my terms of work. So like some basic things is explaining a bit how my process work, how often they will get updates, when do I expect them to pay me, what they can and can't do with the art, what are like what I can do or can't do with the art. I'm usually a bit more flexible when it comes to like bigger clients, because also I tend to work with very nice people. So
that's always step one: work with people you like.
Yeah, work with good people. So I'm usually just like, okay, I know you want to like bad things with it, just do whatever you need. I'm fine with like having to change stuff. But I usually have a bigger discernment when it comes to like, how can you use it? Like, okay, you can use it on streams, on promotion material, but you can't use it on a product, as an example. That's pretty much it.
Okay. That's
Right on.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
think when you-
it's really on a spectrum, isn't it? Like between
Yeah.
commission and licensing, there's a lot of stuff in between. I've worked with
For
both
sure.
a commission model where I owned the piece of art, or we own the piece of art as Accidental Cyclops, and we can use it for whatever we want to, and the artist can't use it without our permission, right? But most of the work that I've done has been more along the lines of somebody has a catalog of art, we really like it, we would like to use it for a specific group of products or a specific title, and it's licensed in perpetuity for that usage. The artist keeps all of the, and in our case, it was physical art. So they keep all of the rights to the original physicals. They can sell as many prints as they want. They can use it however they want. But they're not going to work with any other gaming companies to produce a product that's based on that art in the way that we have, based on that license.
Right. And that's similar, I think, with the most of the licenses I've seen with the stock art artists is that they will say you essentially have the license to use this art for any, whatever purpose you want, basically in any way you want. And they often will say things like, feel free to change it, or, modify it however you like, or anything like that in addition. But the art still belongs to them, and you have to use, like some sort of credit or whatever. And they'll say like how they need to be credited when it's in use. But yeah.
Yeah. Great. Any other thoughts on licensing? Or, well, actually, I'm gonna bridge off of that a little bit. Something that's related. Let's talk about what people pay for art. And I know that's loaded because it's depends on the size of the art, the complexity of the art, the artist, where they're located, what the budgets are for the person buying the art, that sort of thing. But are there any trends that you all are seeing in terms of what are reasonable rates to pay good artists that make the artists feel valued and still are accessible for the independent game developers like us?
When I was starting out with Defy the Gods, my mentor said, she said a full page piece of art should be $1,000, and you can't always pay that, but that's she said what it should be. And I found, and I didn't even know she was talking about letter size or 6x9 or what,
Sure.
but I was doing a 6x9 book, and I tried to do that. She also said, because I was just starting out doing this, she said, what you do now will become your habit. So however you start out is how, in terms of the rates you offer and things like that, is how you will keep going. So start now, but I think that what I found in working with people in Europe and America, North America, South America, Southeast Asia, was that folks in the global South charge way less, and in my opinion, too little. Like, I don't mean way less is a good thing. I mean, like, and I know there's always sort of a delicate dance, maybe, of like offering a rate up front, like this is what I can pay, versus asking the artist what they want to charge. I don't know, Puffy, which of those you prefer, but like when I did ask people their rate from anywhere south of the equator around the world, like it often wasn't. I often tried to pay more than that. I mean, I was in a fortunate situation where I could, but and not everyone is. But I don't know. I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I noticed a similar trend where even Europe is priced significantly less than North America is. So if I work with a Canadian or US based artist, it is almost always at least double what I would pay for someone in Europe, and triple to quadruple what somebody in Southeast Asia or South and Central America is going to charge me. And I get it. Like, I understand macroeconomics, but just to the extent that anybody understands macroeconomics, right? But at the same time, it feels really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big part of, in a lot of places, I noticed this a lot in Brazil, where I live, there's a very strong culture of not thinking art as a work. So like, unless you are someone who works with art or you know someone who works with art, you kind of just don't think art is made.
Yeah.
Like it's just there, it just exists somehow.
Mhm.
So it's a weird balance of like, okay, I see a lot of people charging more, but do I have the numbers, the number of eyes to make this work? Like, can I charge it this and still like have clients? It's always a very delicate balance that you never want to mess up because you depend on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like, is there like I didn't know. I don't know if I hadn't commissioned so many artists like that I ever would have gotten a sense for this general distribution of rates. Like as an artist, how do you find out what people are charging? Or,
I find out
offering
mostly
to
on
pay?
Vigen.
You what? Sorry?
I generally find out mostly on Vigen.
On Vigen.
I use like unless I'm like working with someone who's making a game or something like that, something a bit more specific, I just take commissions via Vigen because it's a lot easier than like using a Google Forms or something, which was is what I was doing before. So I'm always looking at like the artists I follow, the artists that have a similar style or a similar ideal customer as mine. And I'm always like looking, okay, they're charging way more, I can charge more. Or like, okay, I might be charging too little or too much for this. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So there isn't like a network, a way of networking overall where like artists can just get together and compare notes on this kind of thing outside of Vigen, huh?
You can always like just find people on social media, like on socials, but this is the way I tend to do, but mostly because I am very rooted on that platform, so it's easier. But it's also a bit difficult because Vigen, you can't really search for price, which is a great thing. But also it's a weird thing because at the same time it's bad because you can't really put your exact budget, but it's good because then the platform doesn't cannibalize itself on like everyone trying to get lower and lower and lower because you can't really search for lower.
That's nice.
That is nice. Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's kind of interesting. I think I've done it both ways. Chrys, you mentioned two different sort of approaches, like, hey, just tell people what your budget is, or, you know, ask them how much they want to be paid. And I've had, I worked with one artist who's, you know, someone who's been doing it for like 40 years, right? And they very much lean toward the wanting me to tell them what my budget was. And then I worked with a lot of people who, you know, I didn't know that might be a thing that people wanted, and I just said, tell me what you would charge for this thing that we want to do, and I will pay you that if it's within my budget. But the way that the person described it to me was that putting that pressure on the artist actually tends to make them say a lower number than they might otherwise.
Interesting.
And so if you just say this is my budget, then they can make a decision whether or not they can work within your budget or not, and the pressure is off of them. They just they can then decide, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
That's fascinating.
I'm still evolving.
That is
how I think about
100%.
Yeah. But that was the thing that it was mind blowing to me. I'd never even considered it really that way before, but yeah.
When you say
bring down, sorry, go ahead. Oh, there was a Discord server I was on where people would put out calls for art that they needed, and it was required among other things, saying how big the piece would be, how complex it would be, what style you wanted, that you say what you're prepared to pay. And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's interesting. It's really the opposite. I'm going to open the kimono a little bit. Will and I both work in software, or have worked in software in the past. It's kind of the opposite when you're going into a negotiation related to, I don't know, something more businessy, for lack of a better word. Usually having more information puts you in a position of power for the negotiation. But it sounds like having that information is not about the power for the artist. It's more about the freedom to say, okay, yeah, I think we can work together. This feels right, rather than putting the stress on them of trying to create a negotiation,
I mean, it sounds like it is power that you are then voluntarily giving over to the artist, because they're already in a less powerful situation. They're already, at kind of beholden to the person offering the work. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I've been trying to do something similar with writers ever since I learned that as well, where I'll tell, if I want to work with a writer, I'll just tell them, like, this is the rate that I can pay, right? If you're willing to work for that rate, great, let's work together. If not, then, I'll keep looking, and I'm sure you'll find somebody who wants to pay the rate that you want to, be paid. So, yeah.
All right, I'll start telling. I'll just start saying up front what I'm prepared to pay. that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm learning that I've been doing this wrong all along, because my philosophy, and this is not just for games, but for art and creative work in general, my philosophy has always been never negotiate, because the person making the thing knows what they're worth more than you do, right? And so I always want to know, just like, hey, if in your ideal world, how much would you be charging me right now?
That's where I was coming from before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And every artist who answered that question for me was like, but I can work with your rates, so.
Yeah. We always add that. It's kind of funny, because I use it to do a lot of when someone asks me, like, okay, what's your ideal rate? I use it to put it not a lot, but like a little lower than what I thought was ideal, just so like I could get the client. But ever since I started having bills to pay, let's stop it, because I need money to pay the bills.
Yeah, stop doing that. Actually, negotiate higher. Tell them a little higher than what you actually need. That's what I would do.
Yeah. That helped.
Cool. Okay, so let's kind of switch gears a little bit. I think that was all super insightful in terms of how to work with artists from a budgeting perspective, and entering sort of artist negotiations. It sounds like where we landed was it's gonna kind of depend on the artist and the project, but by and large, giving an artist more information is better than trying to occlude that in some way. Let's talk about design or art direction. I think that's a tricky thing, and I'll just tee this up by saying I always struggle with how much information to give my artist versus how much do I want them to show me what they can do and be inspired by it. Yeah, and Isabela, do you have a preference? Do you like regimented design direction? Someone saying this is exactly what I'm envisioning, or would you rather someone say, "Hey, here's what I'm feeling. What do you got?"
Generally, I don't really have a preference. I usually try to like send updates whenever I can. Whenever like I get even a small update, I try to send to my clients, and like I can work with like a lot of feedback or little feedback. It's really like what the client is comfortable with for me, because like whenever I'm working on an illustration for somebody, I just want it to work for that person, regardless of like my preferences. Like I would never make something or like approve something that I don't think is good. But if the client says it's good, then it is perfect for me. And if it's like there's something to change, I'll find a way to make it work. Because that's also something that I like about making art with other people and for other people.
Yeah, I worked in the creative marketing branding space for a good number of years, and one of my favorite designers of all time told me something that's just stuck with me for 20 years at this point. He said, never show somebody a version of something that you don't like, because they will always pick that version.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always like, for me, it's more like, okay, this one looks a lot harder to do, but I will include it anyway because it looks cool. And then everyone always gets that one. It's always the difficult one.
Yeah.
It's never the simple one.
Big shout out to Puffy, because one thing that I noticed about the way that she operates is it's always like options. It's like, here are some sketches. Which of the sketches do you like? Here are color palettes. Which color palettes do you like? Here's a little more detail, which you like. And it's always, you know,
Here
which direction
ideas.
do you want to go? And not every artist does that. So like some do like I've worked with a lot of artists and they all make really great stuff. But like Puffy does a very good job of sort of presenting different paths that you could go down. It's super cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's also great for me because I don't have to like, oh, sorry, you can go.
No, go ahead.
It's also great for me because I don't have to decide things. I can just like have cool ideas and say, hey, choose.
Nice. No, I was going to say in the contract, I would ask for intermediate steps. And then I would get like 3 revisions or maybe 2 revisions at each step. And then that was also up for negotiation. You know, a lot of artists are fine with a lot more revisions early and a lot fewer revisions late because it's a lot harder to, you know, start changing that stuff.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, if we go over the contracted revisions, it's whatever you want to, your hourly rate would be, and that was always unspecified. But anyway, for Defy the Gods, I had a color palette in mind up front. And the first artist I worked with ended up adding 2 colors to it, but it was still a palette of then 5 colors that I could give to every artist and say, this is what I'm thinking of. And that helped unify the book more. The graphic designer worked with that palette too. It was a palette of hues, so there was a lot of variation. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's cool. You can Google all this stuff, or you can ask an artist to help you work it out. But like, I did a split complementary palette that looked Mediterranean to me, and even though the focus of the game ended up shifting farther southeast of that, but that helped a lot. And even with 5 colors, it still gave character to everything. I remember talking to my printer rep whose company did printing for Paizo, and she said that all the artists working on Pathfinder would work toward the same style. Like probably there was a lead artist / art director who defined the style, but then they got artists who could all draw toward that sort of slightly angular, a little bit exaggerated World of Warcrafty kind of style. That, and I didn't even know that. I thought it was one artist, which of course is bonkers. But I thought that was really impressive. And of course, if you're making Pathfinder, you can demand that. But for me, it was enough to make a sort of Evil Hat style game that had line art with a lot of color on it that would at least use the same palette, and that was helpful to the book, I think. But I remember, I don't know, sometimes I think I give too much art direction. How much do you guys think is, or any of you think is enough or too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's kind of, I was hoping what we would figure out today. And my guess is there's no right answer, just like with everything else, right? That's not true. There are right answers to things, but there are no right answers when it comes to this creative sort of work where everyone wants to work a little bit differently and everyone has different skills. I have found that I don't like to give more than a solid paragraph of direction for a piece of art. Aside from like there will be a framework, like you said, a color palette potentially, or a generalized style guide, but for each piece, 3 or 4 sentences is what I try to land on.
Yeah. Early on, I gave excruciating detail to these key character portraits that an artist in France, Natalia, did for, and she was the first artist to work on the book. So I was like, I had all these ideas, and they were mostly kind of not well defined at first, which is very frustrating for her. She was very cool about it, but toward the end, I was like, "Yep, that looks good. What you did, that's great," and move on. But I hopefully next time I want to be kind of somewhere in the middle.
It's also
I haven't found myself.
Oh, you can go.
Go
Say.
ahead.
It's
I was
also.
gonna say,
Oh,
There's lag.
sorry.
I
I think
love a
my
good lag.
internet. I'm
Isabella,
sorry.
why don't you go?
Puffy, you go first, Puffy.
Okay. I think it's very different for every artist, but I also feel like when you are working for someone and the art is really important, like for a game, it's good to be open to like very specific directions, because like the thing needs to look good. Like visuals attract a lot. So I will never mind a client giving me too much text, too much images, or like a lot of direction, because like at the end of the day, we need to get somewhere, and that somewhere needs to work for the game, for the book, or for the person.
Yeah. Have you ever done that and then said no when they've given you the direction, said I can't do that or I don't want to do that?
Sometimes I get confusing directions, and then I usually just take a little bit, and like if I think it will not work, or like I can't make it work, I will talk to my client and like, okay, I don't know if I'm understanding what you want, or like I don't think I can make it work, but I'll try to give you some options. Like I always try to like give some options to also see if I'm really understanding what do they want. And like if it's something that I can't really do, I will just be upfront and say like, hey, I can't. I just can't. I can do something else, but I can't do this.
Yeah. Will, you had something before I interjected. I'm sorry.
Oh no, all good. I haven't found myself in a position where I am going to ask artists to try and all match a similar style like Paizo can, right? And I don't know if I want to. Maybe someday, who knows? But as it stands right now, usually when I want to work with an artist, I want to work with them because I want their vision and their style. And so I'm maybe in some cases, I don't know, maybe Puffy could tell you better than me, but I might sometimes give too little direction and lean toward I'm looking for this, but you do whatever you want. I want it in your style, whatever vision you have for it. That's what I'm aiming for. And this is the very light sort of idea that I'm going for. And usually sort of head that direction as opposed to more detailed. Yeah.
I love that.
So interesting, because I really like to know what I want and be able to communicate it clearly. I just want the artist not to have any ambiguity about what I'm looking for. And I don't know which one is more common, or, I probably each artist might have a different opinion on what they want, but I don't know. It seemed to work out okay.
Oh yeah.
Puffy, which one's more common in your experience?
I think it's more common from my personal experience to have like the client saying, I want this general thing, but then this specifically, I want this in like a very specific way. But like both ways are fun to work on and to work with. And like I generally don't mind neither of them. Like both work.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I want to avoid is the situation where like the client wants something but doesn't say so at first, and then the artist provides something that's consistent with the direction they got at first, and then the client is like, oh yeah, no, I don't want that, you know, or I want it to be this other way. And you know, and then the artist having to go like, oh God, why didn't you say that? Like, so
yeah, like if you want something specific, like if you really want something very specific, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's always better to like just say everything you want, everything you need, to like provide preferences and everything. It will always works better.
Yeah. My philosophy on that is always
if you do have requirements, you gotta say what they are, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the way to look at it, is if there are things that are these are must-haves. This is my bullet point list of things that have to happen. Outside of that, I'm just like, man, I'm barely passable at writing and game design, so I'm not going to tell somebody how to do art because I'm real bad at that. That's sort of the way I look at it.
And I think this is also a learning experience for art directors, that is, say, clients. You know, like you probably, I think you just get more of a vocabulary for it the more artists you work with. And for better or worse, probably a clearer, more exacting sense of what you want, you know. Yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts or topics related to art direction that we want to try to cover?
Oh yeah, there was this one time I used to make indie comics. I was an art major. Like I worked in graphics and video games. I have ideas, you know. I have strong opinions, and an artist provided something, and I wanted a leg modeled slightly differently, and I drew digitally on a draft sketch that they had provided. And that ended up, and then after I worked with them, I asked them how, because this was early for me. I was like, how was it working with me? Because I wanted to know, like, am I being good as an art director or / client? And they were like, it was all great, except for that part where you drew on my drawing. And they said it nicer than that. But so like after that, I took great pains to just give feedback in text, in, you know, and that so that was helpful. Also working, and this is something I said in the manufacturing panel, also working with international artists who, for whom English may not be their first language. I also tried to write without using idioms or metaphors or figures of speech, you know, slang. I mean, I just tried to be as literal as possible, just again for the sake of clarity and reducing churn, and also as a courtesy, because I don't speak most other languages. I don't know if that's helpful, Puffy, in your experience.
That is, like, I never saw someone do that, and I think that is generally very sweet of you. English is clearly not my native language. I learned English mostly by playing games and getting people to commission me.
That's
so
cool. Right on.
It's good to have like descriptions that you can just Google and like it's easy to understand, but also whenever I have an issue trying to understand something, as an artist, you always have to like ask questions and like make sure you are understanding like 100%. And also about the drawing, on top of the drawing thing, not all artists mind that. Like, I swear to you, and like it's good to ask, like, can I sketch on top of a drawing? But like a lot of artists generally don't mind that. I absolutely love when the client's like, hey, I want this right here.
it's clear at least, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's generally so helpful. Even if it's like a stick man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, Chrys, you're coming from a background that most of us don't have, which is you did art for real at one point in time. I played at being a design major for a while, and I can do some graphic design, but I will not claim to have been an artist. So that's an advantage you have.
I hope it's mostly an advantage and does not make me obnoxious to artists. That's just my hope. Yeah.
Oh no, I love working with like other artists because I can just like be a complete art nerd with them.
I guess the downside is when I get really down an ADHD rabbit hole, and I like once drew out this whole like diagram of curves that I wanted in the image. The artist was very sweet about it, but like it was biting down way too hard on that one stage of the art. We just needed to get through it, And like you said, Will, I hired them for their aesthetic. I hired them for their style and their excellence. So like, I should trust that, sometimes. But yeah. Clarity is good. I just didn't go overboard.
We are at the point where we have about 4 minutes left. We're trying to keep this at an hour for the summer series. So I think maybe let's do some outros, talk about where people can find each other, and then talk about IGDN a little bit. Isabela, do you want to go first? Where can people find you online?
I am everywhere. Just kidding. I am as either Puffy or Puffy Thank You Warlock or just Thank You Warlock on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. I don't post there, but the account still exists. Blue Sky. I am also on Vision. I'm also Puffy Thank You Warlock there. If you want to commission me, feel free to send me an email or DM me anywhere, or just go to my Vision. And I think that's everything.
All right. Will, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in a lot of places too, but I'm only really active on a few of them. So I think the easiest way to find me is to just go to Adept Icarus, like it's under my name, next to my name here, .com, and there are links to the socials where we're most active, and also like anything else you might need to know. And if you want to join our Discord, like that's probably the place where I'm actually the most active. And if somebody reaches out to me on Discord, I'm pretty much always going to talk to them. But yeah.
Nice. Chrys.
I'm at hecticelectron.com, and I'm Hectic Electron on Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr, and much less active in other places. I have a Discord too, and you're welcome to join it, but not a lot's happening there. I need to follow Will's example and like beef that up. But yeah, that's where I'm at, Hectic Electron.
Yeah. Cool. I'm Jason Ward. I have mostly left the internet, but I'm still found in a couple of places. Sadly, you can find me on LinkedIn. Don't bother. More likely Blue Sky, Accidental Cyclops on Blue Sky. And you can find us at accidentalcyclops.com. And then for the IGDN, we are a membership organization of independent game developers. Developers is a weird word, I think, but we're all folks making tabletop games, a handful of board games, working together, doing our best. We got a lot of really great titles. Come check us out. IGDNonline.com, I believe, is the web address there. If you're an independent game designer, come join us. It's really low cost, and there's a ton of really cool people, of which I'm one of the least cool. And you've got a couple of cool people on this call, and then we've got some really, really cool people that are even too cool to be on this video stream. So come check us out. A lot of great information, a lot of great games, fun people.
There are a lot of people who, and there's a great Discord for IGDN as well, where I know a lot of folks have come in and asked questions about designing games. They've joined and just really learned a lot. I think there's a wealth of experience among members in the group, and it's a very good, and it's a fun, like it's a good vibe. The group is great, and I would say there are other benefits as well, other than just like networking, meeting people and things like that. Like, we'd be remiss to mention, free ISBN numbers, which cost a lot of money otherwise. And, being able to get your games for the first time, maybe to some of the bigger conventions and things like that. There are some really nice benefits to being a member, I think.
Yeah, speaking of that, if you all are going to some of the conventions, some of our viewers, go check out the IGDN booth. All kinds of really cool indie games there to check out.
Yeah.
And in closing, make sure you check out Isabela's work and go work with her if you can.
And
All right,
there's
thanks, everyone.
some stuff that we didn't get to, so that you can find me on the IGDN Discord server. Ask me any questions you want.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.